Imagine holding an asset for 5 years, watching it get dragged through the courts, delisted from exchanges, written off by analysts, and then one day, the government turns around and says, "Actually, you were right all along." That is the XRP story. And right now, it might be entering its most important chapter yet. XRP just broke through $1.50. That is the highest it has traded since the 2021 bull market. And if you've been following this token's journey, and I mean really following it, through the lawsuits, the delistings, the years of legal limbo, this moment hits different. You're listening to Converts, your guide to currency, crypto, and conversions. I'm here to break down why XRP is surging, what finally changed after years of uncertainty, and whether this rally has legs, or if we've seen this movie before. Let's start at the beginning, because you cannot understand where XRP is today without understanding what it survived. December 2020. The SEC drops a bombshell lawsuit against Ripple Labs, the company behind XRP. The allegation? That XRP is an unregistered security and that Ripple had been illegally selling it since 2013. We're talking about a $1.3 billion enforcement action. At the time, XRP was trading around 58 cents. Within weeks, it crashed to 17 cents. Major exchanges in the US started delisting it. Coinbase pulled it. Kraken pulled it. If you were holding XRP at that moment, it felt like the lights were going out. Not just a price drop. The entire ecosystem was turning its back on the token. And then began one of the longest, most closely watched legal battles in crypto history. For 2.5 years, Ripple fought the SEC in court. Every filing, every hearing, every motion. The XRP community tracked it obsessively. There were entire Twitter accounts, entire YouTube channels, dedicated to nothing but Ripple versus SEC updates. People would dissect every court document the day it was filed, looking for any clue about which way the case might go. And the rest of crypto watched too, because this case wasn't just about one token. It was about whether the SEC could classify any cryptocurrency as a security. If the SEC won a clean victory against Ripple, that would give them a playbook to go after every other token. The outcome would set a precedent for the entire industry. July 2023. Judge Annalisa Torres delivers a partial victory. She rules that XRP sold on public exchanges to retail buyers is not a security. But sales directly to institutional investors were a different story. Those did constitute securities transactions. It was a split decision. A win, but not a clean one. XRP popped on the news. Briefly, but the legal cloud didn't fully lift. The SEC still had ammunition. Appeals were possible. The uncertainty lingered. And for the next 2 years, XRP holders existed in this strange limbo. Technically vindicated, but not really free. The sword of Damocles was still hanging there. Fast forward to October 2025. Ripple and the SEC finally reach a settlement. Ripple pays a $125 million fine. Sounds like a lot, right? But consider this. The SEC originally wanted close to $2 billion. Ripple negotiated it down by over 90%. And more importantly, the settlement meant no admission of wrongdoing. No ongoing restrictions on XRP sales. The lawsuit was effectively over. But the real bombshell came on March 17, 2026. The SEC and CFTC issued their joint ruling, the same one that classified Bitcoin and Ethereum as digital commodities. And tucked into that 68-page document was something XRP holders had been dreaming about for years. XRP was officially classified as a digital commodity, not a security, a commodity. Let that sink in. After more than 5 years of legal warfare, after billions of dollars in market cap evaporated because of regulatory uncertainty, the U.S. government finally said XRP belongs in the same category as Bitcoin. The market reacted immediately. XRP jumped 18% in 48 hours after the ruling. It broke through $1.50 and has been holding above that level since. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because even at $1.50, XRP is still 56% below its all-time high. And that all-time high, it wasn't set during the 2021 bull run like most other cryptos. It was set all the way back in January 2018, when XRP briefly touched $3.40. You can find the full comparison of XRP across its 2018, 2021, and 2026 peaks in the article on converts.app. But think about what that gap means. If you look at other major cryptos, Bitcoin has set new all-time highs multiple times since 2018. Ethereum did it. Solana did it. Even meme coins have had their moments. XRP. It's been stuck in legal purgatory for so long that it never got to participate in the last cycle's euphoria the way it should have. Some analysts are calling this the catch-up trade. The idea that XRP has years of suppressed demand that's now getting unleashed. So what's actually driving this move? 3 big catalysts. First, ETF speculation. Multiple asset managers have filed applications for spot XRP ETFs. Now, nothing has been approved yet, but the commodity classification removes what was the single biggest obstacle. The SEC was never going to approve an ETF for something it considered a security. That was a non-starter. Now that XRP is a commodity, the door is wide open. And we've seen what ETF approvals can do for crypto prices. When the spot Bitcoin ETFs launched, billions of dollars in institutional capital flooded in within weeks. If even a fraction of that demand shows up for an XRP ETF, the math gets very interesting very quickly. Second, Ripple's institutional expansion. This is the part that most casual observers miss. While the legal drama was playing out in courtrooms, Ripple was quietly building. Their on-demand liquidity product, ODL, uses XRP as a bridge currency for cross-border payments. Think about how international transfers work today. A bank in Japan wants to send money to a bank in Mexico. Traditionally, that goes through a chain of correspondent banks. It takes days. It costs a fortune in fees. ODL settles that in seconds using XRP as the intermediary. We're talking about real institutional infrastructure here. Real money flowing through the network every single day. This isn't 2018 where the price was driven purely by speculation. There's actual utility underneath this rally. Third, broader regulatory clarity. The March 17th ruling didn't just help XRP. It created a framework for the entire crypto industry. And when the regulatory environment improves, institutional money flows in. Pension funds, endowments, hedge funds. These players need legal certainty before they can allocate. Now they have it. And XRP, with its clear commodity status and its real-world payment use case, is positioned to capture some of that institutional demand. The bull case writes itself. Regulatory clarity after years of uncertainty. A potential ETF catalyst on the horizon. Still 56% below all-time highs with room to run. Real utility in cross-border payments. And a massive community that has been waiting for this moment since 2020. And you knew there was going to be a but, there are real risks here. The Federal Reserve is still hawkish. Interest rates are high. And when money is expensive, risk assets struggle. We saw this play out in real time. On the very same week as the commodity ruling, Bitcoin actually dropped because the Fed signaled that rate cuts weren't coming anytime soon. Crypto doesn't exist in a vacuum. It responds to the same macroeconomic forces as everything else. A strong dollar and high rates are headwinds for XRP, no matter how good the regulatory news is. Then there's the escrow overhang. Ripple still holds about 38.5 billion XRP in escrow. The circulating supply is around 57.2 billion, giving XRP a market cap of roughly $86 billion at current prices. But that escrow is a constant source of concern. Every month, Ripple unlocks 1 billion tokens. Most get relocked, but the possibility of increased selling pressure is always there in the background. Competition is another factor. When Ripple started, the idea of using crypto for cross-border payments was revolutionary. It was basically the only game in town. Now, stablecoins like USD Coin and Tether handle billions in transfers every single day. Stellar, which was actually founded by one of Ripple's co-founders, Jed McCaleb, offers a similar value proposition at a similar speed. Traditional finance is getting faster too. Swift has been upgrading its own infrastructure. The competitive landscape is much more crowded than it was in 2018. And finally, Bitcoin correlation. When Bitcoin sneezes, altcoins catch a cold. If Bitcoin pulls back hard, XRP is going with it, regardless of its own fundamentals. That's just how this market works. So where does that leave us? I think the most important thing to understand about XRP in 2026 versus XRP in 2018 is the nature of the rally. In 2018, XRP's run to 340 was driven almost entirely by retail speculation. People were buying it because it was going up, and it was going up because people were buying it. Classic momentum trade with no institutional foundation underneath it. 2026 is different. You have real regulatory clarity. You have institutional products being built. You have ETF filings. You have banks actually using the network. The foundation is stronger. That doesn't mean the price can't correct. It absolutely can and probably will at some point. But the structure underneath this rally is fundamentally different from the last time XRP was making headlines. If you want to track XRP's price action in real time, Converts.app has live data. It's one of the easiest ways to monitor the market without getting buried in noise. The XRP story is ultimately about patience, about holding through a 5-year legal battle that most people assumed Ripple would lose, about watching your investment get delisted, written off, and mocked, and still believing that the fundamentals would win out in the end. Whether you think XRP is headed to its old all-time high or due for a pullback, you have to respect the journey. Very few assets in any market have survived what XRP survived and come out the other side stronger. 5 years of litigation, delistings from major exchanges, analysts writing obituaries, and through all of it, a community that refused to give up. The legal war is over. The commodity classification is official, and for the first time in half a decade, XRP's future is being determined by the market, not by a courtroom. That's it for today's episode. For the full article with all the details, head to Converts.app. And if you found this helpful, subscribe wherever you're listening. Until next time.